All righty, I'm live. How's it going, everybody? We are live. Very first ever Backyard Farming Academy podcast. We've got a couple minutes. I'm going to go radio silent until we're here. Hello, everybody. This is Tate Dooley. I'm your head instructor over here at the Backyard Farming Academy, and I'm also the creator of Backyard Farming Supply, as well as Key to Life Nutrients. We appreciate you guys jumping over here and hanging out with us. It means a lot. We know that you guys have a lot going on in your busy lives, and we're just here to give back an awesome little holiday gift for you guys as we come into this holiday season and as we enter into 2024 gardening season. We're very excited to give the gift of food security, health, nutrient density, and wellness to everybody who's showing up. So thank you very much. We really appreciate it. I am going to kind of just start diving into some of this stuff. I know a lot of you guys will be continuing to show up and all the different things. Once again, thank you for your time, and I'm going to go ahead and dive in. But before I dive in, I just want to give a little precursor to what helped us create the Seed Starting Blueprint and why we're bringing it to the backyard farming community. So basically, we know that there's a lot of things going on in the food security system, whether it's food availability or pests, or pesticides, herbicides, fungicides, or chemicals that are being put into our food, or GMO genetics, or mRNA manipulation. There's a lot of question marks around food right now. What's in it? What's on it? Is it going to be available? And what is the price going to be? So these are massive issues that are coming to the food supply chain. And I wish that I was going to say that it was going to get better, but it looks like potentially 2024, it will only get worse. Even though the government has pegged that inflation has been coming down, I have not seen it in running a business or interacting with farmers, because of all of these expedited expenses are so much higher. It's basically impossible for us to be certain of the food security situation and the cost of the food. So we just designed the Seed Starting Blueprint because we know at the end of the day, if you're going to take control of your garden, it's got to be from seed. Because if you grab the right seeds, you're ensured that they're non-GMO and that they're an heirloom or a hybridized type of genetic that has been done through conscious human and planetary ethical breeding, then you're going to be sitting in a much better scenario right off the bat. So it's pretty interesting to look at all these things that are happening to farmers, whether it's fuel costs that are still high, labor costs that are still higher, insurance, input costs and expenses, whether it's fertilizers, soil, seeds, harvesting equipment, or other types of technology that is absolutely essential for them to bring their crop to market. It is absolutely huge for us to take control of these things. There's also a lot of things going on in the dietary world, and people are pushing people toward carnivore diets and pescatarian diets and all sorts of diets. And it's not that any of them are wrong, but I feel that the root cause that we've got to drastically switch up our dietary functions is because of all of the different things that are going on in the food supply system. Like, my personal opinion, this gluten thing that's going on for the last 10 plus years now, I personally don't think it has anything to do with the gluten. Now, maybe for some type of people and some type of genetics, yes. But at the end of the day, its majority has to do with the pesticides, herbicides, fungicides that are being used in and around these cultivation farms. It also has a lot to do with the genetics of these particular types of seed. When we look at corn and soy and wheat and other main staple crops, those are the areas that genetic modification has came in at the highest level to ensure that farmers and growers have a successful crop at the end of the day. However, sometimes we're not necessarily paying attention to the best metric that gets us the delivered harvestable crop. What is the outcome of this crop? Is it going to be good for the people, the planet, and the systems that it comes in contact with down the road? So that's really why we're bringing the Seed Starting Blueprint to the table, is to give you guys an opportunity to really take control of this. So we really appreciate you guys being here. I know I've said it, and my phone is kind of blowing up right now. I'm getting text messages, I'm getting WhatsApp messages, I'm getting Signal messages, I'm getting Telegram messages, I'm getting regular text messages, Facebook, Instagram messages. So if I kind of seem a little distracted, it's probably because I am getting blown up over here, which is good, So with that being said, I'm really glad to have you guys here, and I'm going to go ahead and dive in to a couple small sections of the seed starting blueprint. Now, some of you guys have seen the seed starting blueprint and you came back and you're like, wow, you guys have put together a highly comprehensive course. The seed starting blueprint has a 200 plus page workbook. It has multiple ebooks. It has up to 40 videos. It has tests. It has quizzes. And there's a lot of things going on there. And some people are like, wow, I didn't realize that I was going to be getting a bachelor in starting seeds. We like to go to the nth degree. We like to go to the very maximum detail, but also we want to not overwhelm people, and we want to put it in a positive light that is consumable for most people with the busy schedules that we've got, all the different events that are happening constantly, and all the different people that are reaching out to us in our busy everyday lives, let alone to mention by the time we get off work, we go into husband or wife mode or significant other mode. Maybe we've got the kids or the pets to take care of. Maybe we've already got some seeds started and they're just taking a little bit too much work out of maybe they're taking a little bit too much time out of our busy schedule to be able to take care of them. Well, I'll give you a little pre-teaser. Last year, I had an opportunity to go to Dubai and Monaco and got a beautiful travel opportunity all over the world. Well, I'd actually started a little bit over 1,000 seeds at the time. I had all these seeds growing and I had to leave my house for 3 weeks at a time. When I came back, it was awesome because my systems and my equipment and my tools allowed me to fully automate my vegetable seed growing to the point when I came back, I lost no seedlings at all. It was an absolute victory. And it really showed me the light of how we can automate equipment, tools to be able to give us an automated garden so that we can continue with our busy lives. At the end of the day, we need to be able to use technology and our life and our time accordingly to be able to maximize our results. So that's why we've developed the seed starting blueprint. And our seed starting blueprint, like I said, is highly comprehensive. Today, we're going to go into a quick deep dive on 2 sections of the seed starting blueprint, and that is choosing and prepping your space, as well as the equipment and tools that you're going to need to be in place before you start your seeds. So let's go ahead and dive in. I think one of the biggest things that we can do when it comes to starting our seeds is choosing and preparing your space. At the end of the day, this is the most crucial thing. If we start them obviously outside in Colorado and they get snowed on, all your efforts are gone. If we go and we put them into a shed that has no insulation and the temps and humidities are ping-ponging all over the place, it's going to give us a lot more pest, disease, and also uncalculated or unprojectable growth patterns for our seedlings. So it is what it is, but at the end of the day, choosing and preparing your space is the foundation for your seed starting efforts. So that's where we're going to start, because it doesn't matter what types of seeds or equipment that you have. If you don't have them in the right space, you're not going to get the results that you're looking for. So I'm going to go ahead and jump in. So the main things, like I said, is choosing the right space for starting your seeds. Some of the recommended equipment and tools that you might need in those specific places to do things like automate your seed starting or control the grow environment so that it's a much more calculated and consistent grow environment. We're also going to go into how we can clean and sterilize these places before we start growing to minimize pest and disease. And we're also going to go into creating ideal environments and also setting up and getting your seed starting supplies. These are quick, basic things, but at the end of the day, there's so many variables that go into this on the back end. So here we are. We are looking at choosing the right area. And I've kind of alluded to some of this stuff already, but the biggest thing is flat temperatures, humidities, and environment. You want to choose the space that has the most flat characteristics. When I say flat, it's exactly opposite of the ping-ponging growing environments like some of us have tried. Now, this is similar to like a greenhouse. A greenhouse can be an amazing place to grow, but it can also be a very difficult place to grow because of the lack of insulation and the lack of potential grow environmental controls. If you're lacking grow environmental controls, at the end of the day, you are going to see a lot of swing in your environment. And the swing in your environment is, like we've said, one of the biggest areas that is going to give you problems. How? Well, for example, if we have a lowering temperature and potentially a raising humidity, which often happens simultaneously, that is the perfect growing habitat for things like mold. More specifically, powdery mildew, downy mildew, botrytis, and other types of fungal presence that can really affect your plants. At the end of the day, this is a bad way to start your seeds, because if right off the bat they've got powdery mildew, downy mildew, or botrytis, that is going to affect the plant for the rest of its life period. And it's ultimately going to probably even kill off that plant or infect the rest of your garden before fruit set and definitely harvest even happens. So these flat temperatures and humidities is the most important thing. If we start with flat, even if it's lower temperature flat, the most flat environment we can possibly get is the best. So we're going to go ahead and look at some of the other characteristics like airflow. What type of airflow is there? Because when we look at flat temperature, a lot of times that comes with flat airflow. If you've got leaks and cracks and crevices and a window that doesn't fully shut, or exhaust fans that aren't on backdraft dampers, or intake fans that aren't on backdraft dampers, or air conditioners that don't have a heat mode setting, we're going to automatically have a much more difficult time regulating the temperature and humidity through the airflow that we're seeing. So it is what it is. That's why we're here. That's why we're giving you guys this advice, to really allow you to take a horticultural detective's perspective of everything that's going on in your seed starting room. So one of the next biggest things is lighting. Are we using lighting from a window or a natural source like a skylight? Now, obviously, free energy is amazing, and Mother Nature definitely makes the best light at the end of the day. Now, when it comes to this type of light, there's a few variables that we've got to look at. Number one, what's the intensity? Number two, what is that light doing to the temperature of your particular grow room? Because a flat temperature grow room can have fluctuations just because of the lighting levels. Another big thing with natural light is photo period. What type of photo period are we seeing? How many hours of light versus darkness are we having? Because that directly goes to some of the characteristics that our seeds will display when it comes to showing their sex, whether they're male or female. A lot of plants have both male and female characteristics, and through environment and phenotypic or genotypic responses, it's actually going to trigger a bunch of different environmental aspects. A bunch of different genetic aspects. So it can definitely be a huge pro to have some natural lighting, but it can also be a con. A lot of times what I see, especially in a seed starting room that's going to be in somewhere like here I am in Colorado, that is going to be that here in Colorado, we're going to be starting our seeds, maybe late January, early February for your things like your peppers and maybe some of your tomatoes, maybe even some of your brassica crops as well. But at the end of the day, you're going to want to have a little bit more control of those seeds in your environments. So I'm actually a huge proponent of blocking off as much of the fluctuating environment, being windows and natural light, as possible in my seed starting room to give me full control. And then I come in with something like LED lighting, and or high pressure sodium or metal halide or T5 fluorescent grow lighting. These things are absolutely amazing. Yes, it costs you more energy on your power bill. And yes, you've got to buy the equipment. But once you have bought the equipment, a lot of these things, like especially T5 and LED lighting, you can get at extremely low wattages. Like a lot of clone and seedling LEDs are 18 to 40 watts. So it's pretty much in your standard range of electrical usage as a typical normal home lighting source. But at the end of the day, you're repurposing that energy towards growing your food. It's really, really important. And we usually don't see the really high energy output lights that take a lot of energy and also create a lot of heat until we're looking for high horsepower lighting that's going to give us fruit and flower development. That's where it gets a little bit more expensive on the utility side. And that's definitely where you're going to see the cost of these lighting technologies exponentially increase. But once again, you get what you pay for. And the beautiful thing about something like LED lighting right now versus 10 years ago is it's going to be a light that lasts for a really long time. Its spectrum is usually fully adjustable. Its wattage is fully adjustable. And we're going to be able to fine tune these light sources to the exact use case scenario that we're looking for. So there's a lot of benefits. And lighting in and of itself, well, actually all three of these things we could go on for days and days about. But we're trying to keep it short and sweet and not overwhelm you guys like we might have done in some spots in the seed starting blueprint. So lighting is absolutely essential. And while we're on lighting, I do want to talk about the timing of your lighting a little bit, because there's a lot of different types of plants. Most of them are going to benefit at an 18-hour on period to a 24-hour on period. Usually during the seedling starting phase, there's no problems with leaving your lighting on 24/7, especially if you're a little bit late in the season and you want to make up a little bit extra time. However, I feel if we want to mimic nature, that we need to let our plants sleep. And there's a lot of studies out there that show that our plants actually grow the most during the sleeping phase. And or potentially that's where they build up their energy to grow more the next day. There's a lot of different studies on this, and there's a lot of different manipulation methods that we can input to really give us an opportunity to maximize our lighting and our genetics and also the sexual expression of our plants via photo period. So it is what it is. But at the end of the day, all of these things are going to go directly into our space. And when I have been talking about environment and lighting, something that I really push, especially for seed starting, is vertical tier growing. We can go to big box stores. We can grab these 4 and 5 tier wire racks for right around $100. They're an amazing rack, and we can use them in many different purposes, whether it's starting our seedlings, vegging our seedlings, transplanting our seedlings into vegetative plants, or even all the way at the end of the year, using them as areas to cure and hold some of our produce without the lights being on. This is a multifaceted space that you're putting together there. And I actually do exactly what I'm talking about. And I use my seed starting room to be able to store my produce at the end of the season so that I've got a little bit more space in my kitchen to be able to do my prepping, cooking, and ultimately give me working space in my kitchen. So definitely think vertically when it comes to storing produce as well as growing seeds. A 2 foot by 4 foot area can give you a ton of growing area. And honestly, it can give you enough room to pop about 1,200 seeds if you're doing them in 72 count trays. Now, obviously, if you're going down to 50 count trays or 24 count trays, you're going to have less plants. But you might actually be able to maximize those plants and get bigger, more mature root systems and vegetative mass of these plants before they go out in the garden. And ultimately, I think that that's the garden. Let's bring our raised beds, our vertical grow towers, and all the garden features that we've got, the biggest, baddest, healthiest plants that we possibly can. That's for sure. We want thriving root systems and plants with no pest, disease, health issues, or anything else. And at the end of the day, this is going to make our garden absolutely explode, especially if we maximize timing. And let's say that we've started our seeds early enough in this space so that by the time we go out into our garden, we've got little baby flower sites coming off of our pepper plants. Now we're going to see peppers maybe a week, maybe 2 weeks into development by the time we go out into the garden. That is absolutely huge. That'll bring your harvesting timeline from, let's say, the beginning of August, if you went out with a really small seedling, to maybe the end of June. There's a huge difference there, especially when we look at poundage of yield that we're going to be pulling from our crop, and also opportunity to get it to be able to blow people's mind with the delicious flavors and diversity of varieties that we're able to grow in seeds in our grow room that we cannot get in the big box stores. This is absolutely essential. So, like I said, there's a lot that we could talk about here, but at the end of the day, we're going to keep moving. Some of the possible locations, once again, are tiered racks, window sills, garden sheds, grow tents, and greenhouses. And if you really want us to dive into this, pay attention to some of the future courses that we're coming out with through Backyard Farming Academy, specifically around hydroponics, because a lot of times our tiered rack systems and our grow tents and our greenhouses use some type of hydroponic growing method, even if our plants are still growing in soil. Now, traditionally, hydroponic means growing in water, but I also feel that there's a hybridized approach to this where we can be growing in living soil, but using automated hydroponic style systems to be able to maximize our growth and minimize our effort. Now, obviously, there's other places like window sills that this might not be as much as possible, and it all depends on the scale and size of your garden, your household, your yard, and your family. So a windowsill can be an amazing place for you to use to be able to grow seedlings, but at the end of the day, it's gonna probably be for something as simple as one clone dome, one seedling dome, one 50 count tray, or 72 count tray. It's going to be easy to take care of because you've got no expense. All you did was you bought your seedling tray and your seeds, you put it in your windowsill. Hopefully it's right by your kitchen and you can water it very easily by hand, set it and forget it. Super simple, and be able to hang out and take care of your seedlings every single day. Now, something like a garden shed, a lot of times we think, hey, that'd be a great spot because of its location, its proximity to the garden. Maybe we're not using or maximizing it, but ultimately a lot of garden sheds are not very well insulated. And you're going to see a huge swing in the environment. And that swing is going to do all the things that we've already talked about. Give you more pest, more disease, and ultimately slow down the vigor of your seedlings. I really like something like a grow tent. Let's say that you've got a basement or an extra guest bedroom. A grow tent can be absolutely amazing because they're very cheap to get, especially if you go to somewhere like Facebook Marketplace or Craigslist or to a friend that might not be using one. You can get them for usually $100, $200, somewhere right around there. Now, $200 on a grow tent, $100 on a tier, maybe $100 on some LEDs, maybe $100 on a pump and some reservoirs, a pH pen and some nutrients. You're off to the races for only a couple $100. And you're going to have an extremely dialed in grow environment, especially if you're doing something like a basement or a guest bedroom with your grow tent in it. You're going to have the most flat temperatures possible. You're going to actually be able to hook up an exhaust fan to these tents and simply evacuate the air out of that room on a basic fan and temperature control or humidistat, and that's going to give you a really good space. Honestly, a lot better than most greenhouses. Now, greenhouses are absolutely amazing. Honestly, they're my favorite place to grow in general, and they're definitely the plant's favorite place to grow. But to be able to get them dialed in takes a little bit more work. Whether you have to have a mini split air conditioner, which is a good amount of power and a good amount of expense on its own. Now that is a grand slam. Putting a mini split air conditioner that's capable and specifically spec'd out for the amount of BTUs, for that amount of space, that amount of heat, maybe it's via lighting or bringing into account the amount of sun and temperature that you typically see there year round. You can use those measurements to be able to calculate a BTU setting for your grow tent, which will give you a specific size of mini split air conditioner. Now, mini splits are awesome because it's a condenser and it's a handler, or it's a head unit. The head unit is going to go ahead and treat with the air conditioning and heating and keep it right inside that target flat temperature zone that you're looking for. But you're also going to see this really maximize your grow results. So at the end of the day, greenhouses are a little bit more expensive to set up, and it also is a little bit more environmentally independent. Places like Colorado, it's hard to maximize a greenhouse for pre-season conditions because you're going to get snow that's going to fall on top of the greenhouse and completely shade out any of the lighting. Maybe the condensation from that cold temperature mixing with the warm air inside is going to create a very high humidity environment, but also that rapid temperature fluctuation when you come in and out of that grow room is going to welcome a lot of pest and disease. This is where we've got to do even further things to greenhouses, like putting entryways so that we've got a space to enter, close the door, open the door to the greenhouse, then go in, which will reduce our pest and disease as well as our temperature fluctuations drastically. But all of these things are more time, more effort, and more budget. So it really depends on you. If you're like, hey, I'm trying to grow for acres, then that's probably your best bet. If you're like, I'm only growing for my family of 4, you'd probably find an easier setup space and then use that space that you would have used outside for your greenhouse for something else more seasoned approach. Because greenhouses, like I said, are amazing, but there's a lot of variabilities that come with them for the average grower that can create a lot of complications. And ultimately, we've all been to our gardener buddy's house that has the really small little big box store glass greenhouse that they bought because it was super cute. And they thought that it was going to be really easy to just go ahead and start some seedlings in there. And all of a sudden, nobody's using it. It's sitting there. Maybe it even has dead plants in it from the year before. But it's a little bit more difficult to use a greenhouse in heavy fluctuating temperature environments and snowfall or rainfall than places like Arizona or New Mexico, where you're going to have a lot longer season and be able to put a greenhouse to use a lot more effectively. Like I said, we could go way further into the details on all this stuff, and we could really go into the weeds, and we could spend literally probably weeks on just the greenhouse aspect alone, but then you guys would leave and you'd be overwhelmed. So we don't want to do that. So that's a good we are looking at when it comes to prepping and choosing our space. Another thing I just wanted to pause and say real quick, we're about 30 minutes in on this presentation. Thank you guys. I've definitely seen a couple more of you guys show up. Some people have been leaving. Some people are chiming in on different social apps. Put a comment down below. Let us know where you came from. Did you see this post on a Facebook group? If so, what group? Did you see this on Instagram? Did you see this on LinkedIn? Did you see this from an email that we sent? We would love to know. This is our first time doing this. And at the end of the day, we are looking to make this experience as good as possible and polish it and continue to get better and better every single time that we do one of these live Q&As. We're going to be doing them every Thursday for the rest of the winter into the spring and hopefully throughout next summer when we have a live studio back in the garden. This is my personal garden here at the Backyard Farm. We've got about 24 features here. We've got about 24 garden grow beds or features. Some of them might be the same type of feature like a rectangle bed here or here. Some of them might be bean tunnels like right here, triangle beds, outdoor showers, outdoor processing stations, and a lot of other things that we put into our backyard farm to minimize our effort. That's really what we bring to the table. At the end of the day, people always ask me, what is Backyard Farming Supply and why did you guys create the Backyard Farming Academy? I did it to bring people food security in these uncertain times, to be able to care for their loved ones, their kids, and their family with food that they know what is in and on it, but also to add to their property value, but mainly to reduce their headaches. We have been in agriculture for 60% of my life at this point, professionally, and I've been gardening since I was a small kid, ever since I can't even remember. So we really want to bring this course in Backyard Farming as Supply to connect the education, supplies, and people to the property to be able to maximize your memories with your family, maximize the lessons that you're instilling into your future generations so that they can be food secure. Because there's nothing better. We can give a kid a tomato or a strawberry, but if we teach our kids how to grow corn, cabbage, strawberries, peppers, onions, tomatoes, and everything else, we feed them and their families for a lifetime. And that's really why we've created Backyard Farming Academy, is to do what we can do for the global food crisis situation. We want to give back to our backyard farming communities and families all over the world. And we really appreciate the opportunity to do that with you guys. And we really appreciate you guys showing us the love and support, liking, commenting, and subscribing on our socials, spreading the word, and hitting that like button, because YouTube really needs that. The more likes we get, the more comments we get, the more it warms up the algorithm and allows more people that are into food farming to really smash it. So at this point, I want to open it up to a Q&A. Anybody have any questions that you've got for me regarding Seed Starting Blueprint, Backyard Farming Academy, or choosing and prepping your space? Go ahead and throw them in now. Oh, all right. We've got Natalie Quinn jumping in saying, excellent to see this. We've got Michelle Jones. We've got our green thumb ready. We've also got Seth in the house. Thanks, Seth. Appreciate you. Hey, we've got Sophia Kelly in the house as well. Thank you for guiding the way. Great to see you again. Michelle Jones is saying never stop learning. And really, at the end of the day, that is what it's all about. We are students till the day we die. Seth is asking, is a light from a window enough to grow tomatoes? Well, Seth, that's a great question. First off, it depends where your window is, how much direct sunlight you've got, and what type of tomato you're trying to grow. If you're trying to grow an indeterminate tomato that's going to get 15 feet plus tall, probably not your best bet. But if you want to go hunt out a really awesome, fun little baby dwarf variety that you can put in a 1 to 3 gallon pot, this is a great place, especially if you've got direct sun exposure for a minimum of 4 to 6 hours. Really cool place. Definitely, if it's in your kitchen too, it's going to add a nice ambiance, and it's going to really allow you to smell and see that beautiful dwarf tomato growing throughout its entire lifeline. It's going to put it on showcase for your kids and your family members that come over, and it's just a beautiful experience. So depending on your light and depending on the variety, yes. Natalie Quinn is saying, thank you for your advice. Do you already buy your seeds for this upcoming season, or is it too early? When should I buy my seeds? That is a great question, Natalie. Actually, I am a huge fan of starting to acquire and buy my seeds from the second my last harvest comes down. Why? Because that's when seed availability is at the highest. That's when you can hunt out the most unique varieties, and you can also get them before they're sold out. A lot of times, especially nowadays in age where myself included, a little bit, instant gratification oriented, where we expect for us to click a couple buttons online and boom, it shows up. Well, starting seeds and gardening in general totally switches our mentality, and it really gets us into proper performance prevents poor performance, or proper preparation prevents poor performance. And at the end of the day, that is what it's all about. So I say start getting your seeds even during the middle of the summer. If you see a variety that you're like, oh my God, I did not get to grow that this year. That sounds absolutely amazing. Next year, I have to grow the black strawberry tomato. Go ahead and buy the black strawberry tomato. I am a firm believer to always be buying and always be popping seeds. So hope that answered your question, Natalie. Seth is asking for email. Yes, we're going to have emails coming out to the group. And, oh, yes, we also do have a Facebook group. If you guys are curious about our Facebook group, it is Backyard Farming Academy on Facebook. Very simple. And always feel free to go over and check out Backyard Farming Supply, YouTube, socials, and elsewhere. Natalie Quinn is asking, where are you buying your seeds? Well, I am excited to say that in the shortly after the beginning of 2024, the Backyard Farming Supply website will have a ton of seeds and seed starting gear on there, so you guys can centralize your knowledge, supplies into one spot with Backyard Farming Supply and Academy. Another couple of vendors that I got to throw some huge shout outs to that I absolutely love are Victory Gardening. Victory Gardening is a really amazing site. They've got, I especially love their dwarf tomato variety selection. If you are constrained by space, or you're just sick of growing indeterminate tomatoes that you feel like all you're doing is trimming leaves and shoots the whole year, now this is a good spot for us to incorporate dwarf tomatoes, because dwarf tomatoes put all their energy into the fruit instead of the leaves, shoots, and vines. So I definitely love Victory. Not only are they good for the dwarf tomatoes, but they've got amazing peppers and greens and all sorts of different things that you want. So check out Victory Seeds. Another one that I love is rareseeds.com or Baker Creek Heirloom Seeds. As you guys saw some of the YouTube videos, maybe we'll post it in the link down below, is we got a bunch of seeds from Baker Creek. My apologies. We got a bunch of seeds from Baker Creek Heirloom Seeds last year, and we had some extremely rare varieties of all sorts of different things, whether it was the 6-foot kale that had leaves the size of my torso, or the dwarf tomatoes, or unique, indeterminate, and determinate tomatoes, leafy greens, mizuna, radishes, spinach varieties, and all sorts of other things, Baker Creek had an amazing selection. I would say that Baker Creek might have one of the largest selections of unique seeds, but Victory Seeds is not far behind. What's cool about supporting companies like this is they are not owned by the gigantic ABC companies that we don't want to say here on this podcast. Some of us all know who some of these companies are that have kind of done some damage in the agricultural section and that are responsible for us questioning what's in and on our food. So vote with your dollar and support companies that you've done your research to make sure that they are doing ethical practices that you are proud to support. That's what I've got to say. So, Natalie, I hope that answered your question. We've got Jordan Music Entertainment. Can I just sow seeds into the soil and not worry about buying all the equipment? Yes, you can, depending on what type of seed you're trying to grow and what environment you're in. Also, what time of year and how many harvests before your plants start fruiting. For example, here in Colorado, I could probably go out in early May and I could direct sow a bunch of seeds. And by the time June 1st, which is my targeted planting date, I could probably have seedlings 6 to 12 inches tall. Now, if I take that same seed and I start it inside a stable environment all the way back to late January or early February, we're going to be going out with full-blown mature 2, maybe even 3+ foot tall plants that have flower sites, fruit sites, rocking and rolling, and we're going to be seeing deliverable produce within weeks after that. Versus the direct seed sowing technique with something especially like a pepper or a tomato might not be as advantageous to maximize our harvest, our yield, but also the amount of time that we go through the summer before we get to start enjoying and feeding our friends this amazing produce. Now, on the flip side, things like beans or pole beans, some leafy greens, radishes, and some other crops like that, corn specifically, you do not ever really want to plant inside. Corn is always a direct sow plant. I feel that by the time that you direct sow a corn plant, you're going to be automatically limiting its root size, limiting its overall maturity. Corn really likes to be directly planted. Allow that taproot to go as deep as absolutely possible. And by the time that taproot taps, that's when the rest of the corn plant really starts to grow. Beans are the same way. There's no need to sprout them inside because they're so fast growing. You could sprout your beans even potentially the first or second week of June here in Colorado with a targeted planting date of June 1st, and you're going to be totally fine. You're going to have massive bean plants and massive vines that put off thousands of beans. Like Bean Tunnel this last year, we had over 100 types of beans, and we actually sprouted those at about the 3rd week of June. So it really depends on where you're at, what type of plant you're trying to grow, but also your system. My system grows really, really fast once the plants are in the dirt because it's irrigated and it's fertigated, which is fertilizer irrigation. So I hope that answered your question, Jordan. Michelle Jones, if I buy my seeds early, where should I store them to keep them safe until planting? That is a great question. A lot of times we're going to want to take the same aspects with our seed storage as our seed environment. We want the most flat temperatures and humidity possible. I actually keep mine in my safe. Some people have seen some of our YouTube videos and they're like, whoa, dude, you have a giant safe. What's in there? All seeds, literally. So that's a great place because they're locked out of the light. They're in a flat temperature. They're in a flat humidity. They're where people can't get to them. Kids aren't going to be messing with them. Seeds aren't going to be getting mixed up. And I can continue to add to my collection. It also gives you enough space to have little divider or Rubbermaids or Tupperwares labeled specifically tomatoes, pepper, greens, kale, whatever. And it really gives you organization. And then you can even go further and you can have Tupperwares that you're like, seeds I've grown before and seeds I look forward to growing next year. So that way it eases your organizational efforts to be able to maximize your cultivation and optimize your diversity. So hope that answered it for you, Michelle. Are the seeds at Walmart bad? You know, I like to say if you're growing your own food right off the bat, it's so much better. You could even take a GMO seed. The thing about GMO seeds, when you're growing them, the reason that they GMO seeds is so that they can withstand pesticide, herbicide, and fungicide better. Well, if we buy even a GMO seed and we start growing it at our house and we're not using pesticides, herbicides, and fungicides right off the bat, it's that much better for you than any type of produce that we're getting at the store. Because all farmers have what's called an integrated pest management strategy, especially if they're in a big box store. They have to, especially if they're at commercial scale and have millions of plants and acres of greenhouse and acres of farm. They have to have an integrated pest management strategy or they're not going to have a successful harvest. So your integrated wellness strategy can be buying even any seed, even a seed at Walmart, and sprouting it at your house to be able to take control of your food, knowing what's in and on it the whole time. What I find is by sprouting your seeds at your house, whether it's a seed from Walmart, Home Depot, any big box store, or the most small family boutique seed swap, right off the bat, we've got that much more control. The seed has not been cultivated in an environment where pests and disease are already established. In greenhouse and farming horticulture, it's called bioaccumulation. So we've got no accumulated biology, no accumulated pests or diseases, especially if we're starting a fresh seedling in a fresh seedling room that's sterilized since last season. We're going to start so much better off. So Natalie Quinn, I'm in the Midwest. When do I start my seeds directly in the ground? Well, if you're in the Midwest, let's say you're in somewhere like Michigan or Indiana or right around there, you're going to definitely be able to start them a little bit earlier than maybe somewhere here like Colorado. Now it depends. If you're in an area of Indiana right off the Great Lakes where it stays windy and cold until May or June, you're probably going to have the same timeline as somewhere like Colorado. When I, even here in Colorado, will go ahead and sow my seeds about 2 to 4 weeks before my targeted planting date. And my targeted planting date every single year is June 1st. Now, last year in Colorado, I could have definitely gotten away with planting May 1st. And I had some friends that did plant May 1st. And their gardens were possibly even, especially their tomatoes, were definitely bigger than mine. But I'm always like, what's the gamble risk? If I was going to be at home all month and I had support systems like these that I could easily throw a tarp over, now I might even start earlier than March 1st. So it's all, once again, also about your system and your tools that you've got. With that being said, probably a great time to go ahead and dive into equipment and tools for your grow room. So let's go ahead and start there. Oh, let's go back. And we are going to go into the equipment and tools. The equipment tools is super essential. And at the end of the day, you get what you pay for. You might have to spend a little bit more money on a better light, but it's going to last longer. It's going to give you better light with maybe a more adjustable spectrum and maybe even more adjustable wattage to give more horsepower on your seedlings as they become established versus just a T5, set it and forget it. You get either 2 bulbs on, 4 bulbs on, or 8 bulbs on. You just increase the amount of bulbs, but you're not technically increasing the amount of wattage, and you potentially aren't changing your spectrums unless you're doing things like swapping out your bulbs. So there's always variables to all this stuff. And some of the recommended equipment and tools that we suggest are seedling trays and domes. And when it comes to seedling trays and domes, first thing is, are you putting your bottom tray into a flood and drain or an automated format? If so, that very outer tray, the most outer bottom tray, not the thing with the cells in it, which is called the insert, is going to need to have holes. Now, if you're not automating it and you're hand watering it and you want it to be able to hold water for a few days to minimize your effort, then you want it with no holes. Then the next thing is the inserts. If you are strictly growing for the biggest, most amazing root systems and plants possible, you're going to want to do something like a 24 count tray or a 50 count tray. You might even go down to a 12 count tray. Those are really big plugs with really big seedlings. And in the beginning, it looks really goofy. But after you give it 2 or 3 weeks, you're like, I remember why I did that. Your plant is just able to stretch out more versus being crowded and just being a lot skinnier and more leggy. Leggy would refer to just shooting straight up and not growing outward, and or more internodal spacing. And then the last thing is our dome. And our dome is a couple of variables that we're going to look at. First is, if a handle like this does make a difference. Sometimes if you grab the domes from the side, the weak ones, it can snap in and it breaks a little seedling stem real quick. So handles are nice. Does it have vents? Definitely don't ever get a dome with no vents. It's going to be a huge pain in the butt for you. And when it comes to vents, there's top vents and there's side vents. I'm the grow guru type of guy that I always like all the options and the best stuff. So you guys will notice that about me. So I like a dome with a handle, top vents, and side vents to really maximize my airflow and my hardening off process. Plant labels is obviously a must. I love multicolored, just makes your life easy. Lights is also another absolutely amazing thing. And lights is cool because there's so many things. Obviously, that topic could literally take us weeks and weeks to get through. But I've gone over some of it already today. I'm going to keep it super short and sweet. I am recommending LED lighting. Why? Because it's came so far in the last couple of years. It's low wattage, it's low heat, it lasts for a really long time. It's usually adjustable by wattage, and it's usually adjustable by spectrum. Now, with that being said, if your grow environment, if you need more heat, then you might want to go with something like an HID or high intensity discharge light. So there's so many ways to be able to maximize our environment by using our equipment and tools to get a better environment or better performance. Even things like fans. Do we want a fan just blowing right on our seedlings all the time? No. Do we want a fan in the air just gently circulating the air? Yes. Do we want a roof fan? Amazing. At the end of the day, fans are perfect for letting plants breathe. And if we can circulate the O2 and the CO2 up through the bottom of the plant and through to the top, that is the preferred breathing mechanism for plants. Because at the end of the day, if this is a plant's leaf, on the bottom, we have stomata, which are basically the capillaries of the lung for the plant. And on the top, we've got all the chlorophyll, carotenoids, and the photosynthetic active radiation surface of the leaf or the solar panel. And so we want to cycle all of that O2 off the bottom of the leaf, allow new CO2 to go in through the stomata, while the photosynthetic active radiation or light is being processed to create glucose and different types of starches and sugars and allow mobility of nutrients in general. So there's a lot of different things the air circulation and light right off the bat will give you for performance. Seedling plugs is also absolutely essential, especially to minimize the amount of work that you put in. Are you going and buying bags of soil and filling trays? Can be really cost effective. Are we using pre-compressed plugs? Are we using expanded plugs? We've all got opinions. I really love the pre-expanded cocoa peat plugs. Check some of them out on the Backyard Farming Supply website. These just make life easy. They're great for automation because they are a compressed nature. And at the end of the day, compressed plugs don't leach perlite, vermiculite, and fibers back down into your tray, potentially back down in your reservoir, and potentially into your pumps or your drip irrigation lines, which causes problems. So I'm a huge fan of not using loose media in my seed starting setups to be able to avoid issues. Now, are they a tiny bit more expensive? Yes. But I feel like you get what you pay for. And sometimes using loose dirt is a lot harder to automate than a plug. Now, on the flip side, if you don't have your pre-compressed plug soaking in water for a certain amount of time, you're not going to get full hydration. That is massive. Because at the end of the day, if we bring our water level up and drain it before these pre-compressed plugs or anything else have had enough time to soak up the water, now we're going to have hydration and watering issues. Maybe it's too much, which gives pythium and root rot or fungal issues. Or maybe it's not enough and it just slows down the growth of our plants. Obviously, things like scissors are a given in any garden, and I absolutely love these Fisker scissors. I have legitimately probably bought hundreds of pairs of these in my agricultural career at this point in time. I don't use them much, but it is always nice to have a little watering can on hand for that day that something weird happens. And at the end of the day, you're not able to have your pumps doing what it needs. You need to change your reservoir. You want to spot treat a tray. You want to spot treat some nutrients to a specific tray because it's growing faster than the other ones because of the type of plant it is. It's using more nutrients. There's a lot of different things, and it's always good to have a little simple watering can on hand. Heat mat for here in Colorado is absolutely essential. Now, it depends on the type of environment, and if you're growing in a tiered rack system and what your temperatures and humidities are in your room, it's not necessarily completely essential. But if you put a heat mat on a temperature probe and put it right at your root zone, it is massive for us to be able to regulate the temperature of our root systems, which can exponentially increase our growth of our seedlings. So all of these things I would say are 101 essentials for pretty much any type of grow environment. I would say the least essential would be the heat mat, but even if it's in a perfect environment and on a temperature and humidity controller, on a temperature controller, the main area where this is going to really help you is nighttime temperatures. A lot of times we as growers will look at all of these different pieces of equipment and tools, and how is it performing when the lights are on and when it's growing? However, one of the most important time periods is how is it treating your seedlings and what is the environment when the lights are off and things are not growing? Because that is an area that can sometimes be 4 to 8 hours of a really inconsistent grow environment that can be really fighting our daytime results. So keep it short and sweet. Let's keep moving. Let's dive in. Cleaning and sanitizing your space is massive as well. This is ultimately going to reduce the headaches, the pest and disease that you've got exponentially. And that is huge. If we're using things like hydrogen peroxide or white vinegar or HPA, hypochlorous acid, PPA, peroxyacetic acid, or even just ionized low pH water, we can really sterilize a lot of surfaces with non-invasive chemicals like bleach. A lot of times gardeners want to use bleach, and don't get me wrong, bleach has been used in agriculture millions of times with no problems in any way, shape, or form. However, if you overdo it and you have too much bleach in your water or in your cleaning solution, you're going to really mess things up. There's a lot of different things that can happen with bleach, whether it leaves a residue on the seedling, the plug, the insert, the tray, the drip line, the pump, the reservoir. These are things that we really don't want. We want non-volatile, non-residue based chemicals and things that evaporate really, really easily and have a very low VOC or volatile organic compounds that will mess with our plants. I've seen a lot of people kill plants by sterilizing their environment with bleach. That is just not good. And it can also be a lingering problem that is very hard to take care of. Bleach can stick around on all these surfaces until you come along and discover where it is and use the right agent to break down that chemical and the right amount of elbow grease or pressure to get it out of the room. At the end of the day, we're going to want to make sure that we sterilize all surfaces. Our fan blades, our trays, our drip lines, our pumps, our irrigation, our domes, and some of these things are going to be a little bit higher frequency of sterilization than other, like the grow room in general. Unless you're spilling stuff everywhere all the time, you really only need to sterilize it once or maybe twice throughout the entire grow environment. It's usually one initial sterilization, a good air out session with all your fans on, making sure that there's nothing in there, and then planting will suffice. However, something like your clone domes, you might want to sterilize multiple times. Sometimes people, even once they get to the hardening off phase, will start sterilizing their domes with a extremely light rubbing alcohol, H2O2, or ionized water spray just to kill off any microbials or fungal spores that are developing inside of that root system. So that is massive. And another thing I wanted to talk about is automating your seed starting station. At the end of the day, this is huge right here. At the end of the day, your automation can go, we could talk about this for years because I'm still learning about automation, and I've been a professional horticulturist and student to the day I die since a sophomore in high school, where when I fell in love with growing, and that allowed me to step into plant and greenhouse sciences as my junior and senior year in high school. Automating your seed starting station can be cheap or expensive. It can be short-term and it can be long-term. It really depends on you and your targeted effects and how seriously you want to take it, how set up and established you are at this property, and how many years after you see yourself using, maximizing, and optimizing your seed starting station. I don't know if you guys have seen mine. Check out the link in the video down below. We're going to put some stuff about my seed starting station. I did a really good job last year, but at the end of the year, I ripped it all down and I re-optimized the whole thing. This is the nature of the beast. You'll always find little tiny things that you want to continue to tweak and optimize for the next year. So to go over it real quick, some of the simple things that you're going to need to automate your seed starting station. And if you guys want more info on this, make sure you head over to Backyard Farming Academy. In the near future, we're going to be dropping the automation course, how to automate your seed starting as well as your garden and potentially even more. What else could we mean? Well, you have to find out. So follow along. So the pH meter is absolutely huge. I love my pH meter, my Hannah combo meter. Yes, it's about $300. It's a little bit more expensive than your cheapy generic ones that you can get online, but you get what you pay for. I've had this meter now for maybe more than 10 years. I've had to replace the probe one time, and it was my fault. I let it dry out, and I did not keep the probe suspended in the cleaning solution. If I would have kept it suspended in the cleaning solution, I probably would still have the original probe from this pen that I bought maybe 12 or 13 years ago at this point. A tiered rack, absolutely essential. You can get these. Maybe you've got one sitting around. Maybe you want to go to a big box store. Maybe you want to go on a Facebook Marketplace or Craigslist. Super easy to find. Maybe your buddy has one that he's not using. An aero mixer pump is great for your reservoir. Now, they make a couple different sizes, and you don't have to get an aero mixer, but it is my preferred method because it oxygenates your water really well. That is your first toe dip into the world of maximizing DO, or dissolved oxygen. The higher levels of DO, the lower levels of root-borne pathogens. Also, the more stable our pH, our potential of hydrogen, and also the better our nutrient reservoir will be kept throughout the entire timeline. So it's really, really interesting what we can do by manipulating just our water through things like aero mixers or even basic super cheapy aquarium pumps and air stones. Both of these things can be used and played in to automate the filling and draining of an easy clone. I prefer the low pro easy clone unit. Some of you guys might not know what they are. They've been traditionally used in cloning or propagating a variety. Let's say you found a tomato variety that you absolutely love, and you want to take one of the suckers off of it, toss it into the aeroponic cloner, and grow root mass for an exact clone copy of that favorite tomato plant that you've grown in your variety. Or maybe you want to automate your seed starting. Easy Clone now is an amazing Propagation Pro plug, and the Propagator Pro plug has the ability to start seeds in it. So it minimizes your seed starting effort, which another huge pro of that is now you have a seedling that's grown with no dome. So you do not have to harden it off by humidity at any point in time. It is absolutely amazing. And all of these things, whether it's a tiered rack, your aero mixer, your reservoir, or your easy cloner, are going to benefit immensely by being on some type of timer. This will reduce your energy bill. This will also reduce noise of water bubbling and maybe spilling. And it'll also allow you to control your irrigation frequency to the nth level of your control, which check out the automation course, and or feel free to throw a comment in any of our YouTube videos or down below to be able to get guidance on how you can maximize your irrigation and your automation of your seedlings best. With that being said, we are coming upon the end of today's first webinar for the Backyard Farming Academy, hosted by Backyard Farming Supply. We really appreciate your time. I'm open to some more Q&A if you guys have got it. I've gone about 14 minutes over. One thing you guys will find out about me, I love this stuff. Genuinely, it's my heart, it's my soul, it's my passion, and it's my being. And I'm here for you to answer your questions, maximize your results, and ultimately, it's hard to get me to shut up about gardening. So always feel free to ping us, ask us more questions, and really contribute We appreciate your love, support, and passion. And Michelle, thank you for your time. We appreciate it. And we're here to learn with you. By no means, by even us as being a head instructor, are we saying that we know everything. We're students till the day we die. Yes, we'll see you next time. I'm Tate Dooley, Backyard Farming Academy, Backyard Farming Supply. Have a great day. Keep on growing.